Hello, it's April from April's Home, and today I'm here to share with you a classic Christmas cookie recipe, the snowball cookie. This is a cookie that my mother made every year when I was growing up. My grandma made them as well, and I myself have been making these every year for over 30 years now. So I thought I would go ahead and share this easy and classic Christmas cookie recipe. It has very simple ingredients here. You'll need a cup of butter, 2 sticks of butter, or a cup of butter. You'll need some flour, some powdered sugar. I will need more than this. I'm going to use some to add into the recipe, and then we will need enough to roll the cookies in. I usually use an entire bag of powdered sugar when I'm making these, and I'll show you how I do that later on in the video after we're done baking these up. You'll need some vanilla, and you'll need some salt. You'll need a mixing bowl and an electric mixer here to get this all mixed up, and I'll start by softening up my butter in the microwave and mixing the ingredients together. So I'm going to go ahead now and soften up my butter, and then I'll come back and share with you the next step. As I was unwrapping my butter, I decided to go ahead and make a double batch today. I have a lot of cookies to make up for Christmas. I'm going to be bringing some of these on Sunday to church, as well as sharing them with my family, and I want to have plenty to last all the way through Christmas. So in the description box below, I will leave the recipe for a single batch as well as a recipe for a double batch. So what you're seeing here is a double batch that I will be mixing up, and again, I'll leave that recipe in the description box so you either can make a single or double batch. It's just nice to go ahead and double this recipe if you're making a bunch for Christmas all at once. So I'm going to go ahead now and get this pound of butter here. This is the equivalent of 2 cups of butter softened in the microwave. Okay, so I've put my softened, almost melted butter here into the bowl. It's okay that it is a little bit more melted than just softened, because we are going to be chilling this dough. Next, I'll be adding 1 cup of powdered sugar. And next, I'll go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, so I have poured in my vanilla here, and my butter, and my 1 cup of powdered sugar. I'm going to go ahead on low and blend this together. Just like so. Just want to make sure that all the sugar and butter are thoroughly combined. Next, we'll be adding the flour and salt. The butter and sugar are combined here. The sugar's dissolved in the butter nicely. You can still see bits of butter in there, but that's okay. We'll be mixing this in now with the flour and salt. So I'll be adding 4.5 cups of flour. So here's our 1st cup and 2nd cup, the 3rd cup, and our 4th cup, and our 1/2 cup. And we'll need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So here's my 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So our salt is mixed in there. I'm going to go ahead and blend this all together. Okay, so it is all mixed together. You can see that this dough looks crumbly, but when you grab it together, you can see that you can mold it into a ball shape, the way that we'll need to for this recipe. When I was younger, the way my grandma and mother did it is they would just chill the dough. They would gather it together in some saran wrap in sort of a disc shape of the dough and let that chill overnight. But what I have found is much easier to do is to pre-roll them at this point into the balls, because trying to roll the doughs into balls once it is hardened and chilled in the fridge is very difficult. So it's very easy to roll this into balls, and then we're going to go ahead and chill those balls until they're completely set up and solid. So I have here a little food storage tote here lined with some wax paper, and I've got my smallest cookie scoop. This is the small one, not the standard size one. If you don't have one, just use a small teaspoon. We're going to gather up just a little bit of dough here, and then I'll be rolling this into a ball shape. Okay, I've gone ahead and put my camera on my tripod here so I could show you how I roll these up. So you don't want to make the balls very big here. This might even be a little bit too big. Let's break a little bit off and then just roll them up. Make sure your hands are thoroughly clean. So we're going to be rolling a lot of these. So we've got a nice little round ball here. This is definitely a little smaller than a walnut. So we're just going to line them up in our wax paper lined container here. I'll keep rolling them. And if they start to break apart like this when you're rolling them, just kind of press them together like so. and lightly roll it just like so until you make a nice little round ball. And again, put those in here. We're going to chill those when I get them all done. So I'll do a couple more here, and then I'll do the rest off camera and show you my entire batch here. Again, if you make them too big, just remove a little bit of the dough, pop it back in the bowl, kind of press that together if it's not holding, and then lightly roll it. Again, it is much easier to roll these before chilling the dough. So I started doing that a while back, and it has made these cookies much easier to make. Again, rather than chilling that dough first. And you can just kind of form it into a ball shape there, just like so. So you can see here are our first 4 ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead now and finish rolling all of these. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. I may or may not decide to put a thin sheet of wax paper in between layers of them. If it fills the whole base of this, I may put a layer of wax paper on top. I'm not sure. Sometimes I just stack them in there. Of course, when the butter hardens back up in these, they will stick together, and you'll kind of have to pry them apart when you're baking. So I do like to leave as much space between them as I can. Okay, I'll get these rolled up and come back and share with you the next step. Okay, you can see the first layer done here. I've made them all fairly uniform size, which is really important for baking time, and I've still got more to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little sheet of wax paper on the top of these so that they don't stick, and go ahead and finish up the rest of the dough. Okay, so all of the snowball cookies are rolled up into their rolls here, and I've got them all in their storage container here. I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on these and get these chilling in the fridge. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine in the fridge overnight so that they will be good and solidly chilled. You want these to be solid so that you could not squeeze them apart. As you can see now, they're still, squishy. That's how come we were able to roll them up in a ball, and you want these to be fairly solid. So at least 3 or 4 hours of chill time, or make up the dough early in the morning and bake it at night, or leave it in the fridge overnight, which is what I always do. I make it the day before I plan to bake it. I leave it in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow when these are chilled, I will come back and share with you how we bake these up and rolled in powdered sugar. I'm definitely glad I made a double batch. This looks like a good amount here. I wouldn't want any less than this, since I do plan again on bringing these to share with both family and friends. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these chilled, and then I'll be back to share with you how we bake these up. My snowball dough has set up in the fridge. You can see how solid this is. I can't even squish it. It is a solid ball of cookie dough here. So these are ready to go ahead and bake now. And I'm setting up a little station here to roll them in powdered sugar. I've got out a good size little shallow casserole dish here. I've used storage totes like this in the past as well. I'll be emptying some sugar into the bottom of this to roll the hot cookies in once they're out of the oven. I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to go ahead and put about 8 to 10 cookies on a parchment lined baking sheet and cook those for 8 to 10 minutes. So you want them to be set up and cooked through and just ever so slightly golden brown on the bottom. They can overcook very quickly, so you really want to keep your eye on them. So again, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, between 8 and 10 minutes. And again, I also bake these on a parchment lined baking sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and get out my baking sheet and line it with parchment, and we'll get our first batch in the oven. Then I'll come back and I'll show you how we roll them in the powdered sugar. Again, I'm going to empty my powdered sugar into this shallow casserole dish. I will get out a spoon to help me roll them. And then I also pack these cookies in a layer of powdered sugar. That way, as they sit, they continue to stay nice and coated in powdered sugar. Here are my cookies on my parchment lined baking sheet. They don't need to be this far apart, but the reason I only cook about 8 to 10 at a time is because you want to give your attention to getting these rolled when they are nice and hot still. So you want to roll them in the powdered sugar while they're hot. They're very delicate when they're hot as well, so you really don't want to have too many to be rolling in the powdered sugar at once. So now I'm going to go ahead and bake these at 400 for 8 to 10 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll roll them in powdered sugar. Okay, I've got my powdered sugar station all set up here with the spoon and the powdered sugar in my dish here. I've also lined another baking sheet with parchment paper. I like to use 2 cookie sheets at once. You can use one, but it's really nice to have one baking. That way I have time to get them rolled in sugar while the other one is baking, and we can keep the process going nice and quickly if we're working with those 2 baking sheets at once. I'm also going to go ahead and set the rest of these aside on the other side of my baking station, and on this side here I will get a container to store the cookies in once they're rolled in powdered sugar. You can put them on a cooling rack, but most of the time I just put them right into their container with the container aligned with powdered sugar. Again, I like to pack those in powdered sugar, so I'll go ahead and show you that as well. And here is my little cookie container. I've chosen a nice shallow little container that has a lid here, and I've put a layer of powdered sugar on the bottom. And as I set around the cookies, I'll add a little bit more powdered sugar to kind of create layers in between the cookies, and that way they stay nice and coated in delicious powdered sugar. Our first batch is nearly out of the oven, and we can start rolling them in our powdered sugar here. So here is the first batch out of the oven, and let me just go ahead and show you that that's almost a little bit too dark. It's a balance between getting them cooked all the way through and not getting too dark. This one is pretty good there. I will probably watch the next batch a little bit more. These were in there for 9 minutes. They are pretty good, but again, they are just probably seconds away from being a little too dark. So now I'm going to go ahead and get my spatula. I'm just going to take these off of the tray here, and I'm going to bring them right to the powdered sugar and drop them in. Here's another one. I'm going to keep doing that and get them all in the powdered sugar. And then I like to bury the cookies in the powdered sugar, making sure to kind of remember where they are so I'm not putting a bunch of cookies on top of one another. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the cookies in here, and then I'll come back and show you how I roll them in powdered sugar. Okay, I've put the rest in the powdered sugar here, and again I'm going to bury them in the powdered sugar here so that the powdered sugar can start sort of melting onto the hot cookie. And then I will take an individual cookie just like so. I've got a cookie here you can see in my spoon, and I like to individually kind of roll it around and let that sugar kind of pack onto the cookie here. These taste better if they have a good layer of powdered sugar, where a couple layers of powdered sugar or even a few layers of powdered sugar have kind of melted onto the cookie, and then of course the outer layer is still powdery. So I like to do that by kind of spinning it around with my spoon and making sure that all sides get coated with the powdered sugar here. And the other ones that are waiting for their turn to be tossed around with the spoon here are still continuing to have that sugar melt on them. So it creates like a nice base layer there. So then when I feel like the cookie has had enough powdered sugar, I lift it out of the powdered sugar here, and I lay it in the bed of powdered sugar. That way it stays nice and coated in the powdered sugar. So I'm going to keep doing that with all of these. I've got about 5 minutes now until the next batch is ready to come out. So it does become a bit of an assembly line where you have to really pay attention, get them all coated and transferred so that when the next batch comes out, it can go right into the powdered sugar. You really want to be working with hot cookies here so that the powdered sugar will stick to the hot cookie. So I will be back and show you the next batch here so that you can get an idea how that works. You can see a couple there already. So I'll keep going with this while the next batch is baking. The first 10 cookies are done and coated in powdered sugar, and of course put here in this cookie container in powdered sugar. And I just like to show you this one here. You can see rather than looking like dusty powdered sugar, it has started to melt because it is still hot. So that's why I like to pack it in sugar. I can sprinkle a little bit more over that and roll it around in this powdered sugar right before I'd like to serve it as well. You can see here they're starting to have the sugar melt on them a bit, so you can again roll them around or dust them with a little bit of powdered sugar here. That way they look like snowballs when you serve them. So a delicious snowball cookie. I'm going to go ahead now and bake up the rest of these. And then when they're cooled down, I'll come back and give one a try. Okay, I'm about halfway through baking all the cookies, and you can see my powdered sugar is getting a little bit low here. So I just thought that I would point out that you will need a couple of these bags of powdered sugar. This is a 2-pound bag. I used a little bit, of course, in the initial recipe. And then the whole 2-pound bag is what you're seeing here. And so I will probably add a couple more cups of powdered sugar as well, just to make sure that I have plenty to roll them in and pack them in. So when you make these, you will definitely need plenty of powdered sugar. And as you can see, it's a bit of a cleanup. It kind of tends to go everywhere as you're kind of tossing them in. A little bits of it kind of fly around the counter here, as you can see, but it's very easy to clean up with a warm wet washcloth, and that's just part of the fun of making these snowball Christmas cookies. So I am done baking all of my snowball cookies here. You can see them packed in powdered sugar in my cookie container here. I'm going to go ahead and let these cool for a little bit longer, and I'll put some out on a cookie tray and give one a try. I have put a few snowballs on a cookie tray here ready to serve, and I'm going to go ahead and try one now. Go ahead and take this one here. And now I'll go ahead and try this delicious snowball cookie, a cookie that I have grown up eating since I was a young child and have been making every year for the past 30 years. So this is a classic Christmas cookie that I look forward to every year. You can see the inside there. It is a delicious, simple, buttery cookie coated in a nice thick layer of powdered sugar. So that is my recipe for classic snowball Christmas cookies. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this recipe, and I hope that you give this recipe a try. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas and holiday season. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.